Chapter 4 starts with the Zilberbergs and Wadek still living in Sosnowiec. The family tries to survive, but the German occupation is getting worse and worse with rationings, beatings, curfews, etc. Wadek heads down to Modrzejowska Street. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. And he manages to make a little bit of money down here, but he has to do it illegally. This street in this area is really the commercial district of Sosnowiec. It's where people go to shop, there's lots of people walking around, buying things, stores everywhere. It's the main commercial street. My footage of this area isn't great, so most of this comes from promotional videos or other little clips I've found about the town, and even some of it from Google Maps, like this photo here. Today, this area is much more modern. Over the years, it's become more and more modern. Now they've blocked all cars off of the street, and it's become a pedestrian-only walkway. This happened just a few years ago. And this is the area where Wadek goes to try to make some money, to deal illegally, to do whatever he has to do to try to support his family. Historically, this has always been the commercial district of Sosnowiec, and Wadek goes here and starts working with this guy Ilzeki, selling textiles illegally. Basically, the Germans controlled everything. Who got to sell, who could make a living, who couldn't. And a lot of this was done in the name of the war, that there wasn't enough to go around, and so goods needed to be preserved. The consequences for dealing without coupons were steep. At one point in chapter 4, Wadek tells how 4 Jews were hung because they had dealt without coupons. They'd sold goods without coupons. And the Nazis did this a lot. They used public punishment as a way to scare people and stop them from doing the things that they didn't want them to do. At one point in chapter 4, the Jews are made to go to a stadium to be sorted out, and some are sent away from there. There are a couple stadiums in Sosnowiec. I'm not sure if either of these was the one. One looks newer. But I imagine it was a place like this, one of these stadiums, where the Jews were taken and then sent to Strodula from there. And here you see where Sosnowiec is on the left, and off to our right is Strodula, which was really just a small village near Sosnowiec that was turned into the ghetto where Jews had to go and were not allowed back into Sosnowiec. So this is Strodula. Some of it looks lost and forgotten, like this building behind me here or this building over here. You can see some of the old remnants of old houses, and some of it looks like big apartment buildings like the one at the end of this street, and that has to be a 1950s, 1960s communist era apartment block. Overall, it's just a very quiet little town, not a lot left here. Alright, so I'm here in Strodula. There's really not a lot here to see, but I'm on the street that's called Street of the Ghetto Heroes. It's called Bohatero Ghetto, and you'll see there's really not much here. I'm just gonna drive along and prop the camera up so you can kind of see what's here. Probably at the time that Wadek was here, it was just a small little nothing town. So here we go. You can tell all these buildings are new, which means everything that was here before probably wasn't that nice and probably was destroyed during the communist era. When I say new, I mean post-1950. Many of these buildings are ugly and old, which is a result of the communist era in Poland, but very little survived. I mean, it looks like there's nothing here that was here in the 1930s.
about the only one.
Stradula is no longer a small village. There are some older houses, but there's also just a ton of these large apartment buildings. It's a normal place. People are living normal lives. You see people out walking their dogs, walking to church, going about their lives, their jobs. And it's hard to believe that in a place like this, the Jews would have all been quarantined. This was actually where the ghetto was, where they were forced to live. And then eventually from here, from this little village as it used to be, they were sent to death camps. At the end of chapter 4, Anya's grandparents are taken to Auschwitz, although the family is told that they're being taken to a place where they can be taken care of, a home for older people. Presumably they would have been killed as soon as they arrived through these gates, or quickly thereafter. The Nazis would separate the strong and those that they deemed worthless or unable to serve any purpose. Eventually, the majority of prisoners at Auschwitz would be killed, but in the beginning, just the strong were separated from the weak. You can see the front gate of Auschwitz here says Arbeit macht frei, which means work makes you free. And this is the road and the gate that Anya's grandparents would have encountered as they walked into Auschwitz and eventually to their deaths.